Happy 85th birthday, Mrs. Bloom. I wore this uniform especially for you to help you maybe recall some of the memories that I have and you have of those days when Ken pitched for us in the early 1980s. I don't blame you if you can't recognize me, because I was twice as young in those days as I am now, and I had a big black dark mustache on my face too. But the one thing you might remember is that I always wore number 13. I have a couple of stories about your son that are memorable to me, but I doubt that he ever told you about this first story. This story occurred at Jackie Robinson Field when the pitchers were having fielding practice, and I fungoed a ball to your son, back to him, which he proceeded to fumble the ball first, then drop the ball, and then yell loudly so everyone could hear a word that I know his mother would not want him to use. From home plate, I yelled to Ken, "Bloom, start running around this field and don't stop until I tell you to stop." So Ken went off running, and I continued my coaching until I got so caught up in my coaching that I forgot all about your son. About half an hour later, my assistant coach, Ken Gaylord, came up to me and said, "Gary, do you think Bloom has run long enough?" At which time I looked out to center field and saw Ken chugging along, and then I waited for him to come around. When he got near to me, I said, "Bloom, one more lap and then you can stop running." So Mrs. Bloom, I doubt Ken told you that story, but whenever our teammates, his teammates and we get together, we all have a good laugh because we all remember that day very vividly. I want to tell you what I remember most about your son. It was on a day we were playing a doubleheader against Cal, and you were probably sitting in the stands, and you will probably remember that day too. In the first game of that doubleheader, we were ahead, but it was a close game, and I brought in your son to pitch. Now, Ken hadn't pitched much for the varsity. I don't know if he had pitched at all. He had been pitching for the junior varsity team. But I brought him in to close the game for us, and he ended up pitching 3 2/3 innings against Cal. He allowed no runs and only 1 hit, and he saved the game for us. I remember it was Ken's first save as a Bruin. Your son pitched so well, I started him in the second game, and he went 5 innings, allowed only 5 hits and only 1 run, and he won that game for the Bruins that day too. And so, Mrs. Bloom, I've always been grateful to your son for his amazing performance on that day. So, Mrs. Bloom, those are just a couple of stories and a reason why I get a smile on my face every time I think of your son, Ken. I am so grateful to you and your husband for sending Ken to play for me at UCLA. It was indeed an honor to have coached your son at UCLA. And Mrs. Bloom, that is why, with all my heart, I wish you a very, very happy 85th birthday.